Cool, Michael. Welcome back to Beyond Co-Sell. You're back
Awesome.
in the USA.
We're in temporarily, and Monday I'm back off to Asia. So yeah,
Where are you going?
going to the AWS Summit in Singapore, and
Ah,
then staying on that side of the world, and then going down to Australia to the Sydney Summit.
I'm going to hit you with it this week because I was looking at last week's conversation,
Mhm.
and we're talking about planting the seed, and then when is the tree alive? When is it dead? When to water it? When to just back away, right?
Yeah,
So if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice at the beginning of your first AWS partnership, what would that have been? But you wouldn't have been ready to hear at the time. And why is it not the first thing you actually tell people now?
that's a multi-folded,
Yeah.
complex question, and I'm looking for that answer. I'll give you my answer, but I'm curious to hear yours too. When I started my first ABS partnership at Lacework, this is probably getting on 8 years ago. I didn't know that this is what I was going to do. So I think I was just a happy accident. And the reasons why I got hired, fortunately, I had known people. So I got hired, and there wasn't really a direct path of how we should go. What should I do? Partnerships. We knew it wasn't channel. And so it was tech partnerships and maybe cloud partnerships. And then it turned quickly by customer and sales direction. It turned into literally, I remember the conversation. It's, hey, customer asked us about this AWS Marketplace thing. Can we sell that way? And I was like, I don't know. Let me go figure it out. And so then I think I learned other stuff about how does that really work? If this is the transaction mechanism, wait, there's this whole facility to co-sell, and what value does that bring? So you and I have similar backgrounds in the sense that we were both kind of sales and techie. I was an SC and an SE leader for a long time. So I still am very close to sales, discovery, our sales process. And I constantly remember that I'm an overlay, or now I'm technically an overlay to an overlay. And the truth is, it's still about revenue. It's still
Yeah.
about sales, and it's still about, do we understand the customer's problem, and do we have a solution that solves that problem? And if we don't waste time, and if we do, yeah, let's go figure it out. And then the rest of it is any indirect or partner ecosystem or marketplace, or I call them gifts, things like credits and marketing funds and tactics. Cool. How do we exhaust everything possible to help our sales team win, to help our customers be successful, to move deals faster along? And so I think I accidentally got it right. And I think I accidentally over rotated on co-sell, and clearly I focus a lot on that. I spoke at reInvent. Now it's coming on 22, so 4 years ago, about co-sell best practices. I don't really think that's changed, but what has changed is what we talk about is I didn't understand how to sell and set the right expectations. So now you and I do talk about this, is it honestly just starts with you and your company and your leaders first. Because if you're expecting apples in 2 months, or you're expecting this tree and you're asking me to forecast this stuff, I could lie and tell you what you want to hear, but I don't roll that way. I was never a true salesperson. Oh, I'm going to call a number and figure it. It doesn't really work. It's hard. So I think the answer is I got lucky and I focused a lot on co-sell, but over time I've learned why that's actually beneficial and how to focus on it. So you and I have similar backgrounds in the sense that we were both kind of sales and techie. I was an SC and an SE leader for a long time. So I still am very close to sales, discovery, our sales process. And I constantly remember that I'm an overlay, or now I'm technically an overlay to an overlay. And the truth is, it's still about revenue. It's still
Yeah.
about sales, and it's still about, do we understand the customer's problem, and do we have a solution that solves that problem? And if we don't waste time, and if we do, yeah, let's go figure it out. And then the rest of it is any indirect or partner ecosystem or marketplace, or I call them gifts, things like credits and marketing funds and tactics. Cool. How do we exhaust everything possible to help our sales team win, to help our customers be successful, to move deals faster along? So Now, you and I do talk about this, is it honestly just starts with you and your company and your leaders first. Because if you're expecting apples in 2 months, or you're expecting this tree and you're asking me to forecast this stuff, I could lie and tell you what you want to hear, but I don't roll that way. I was never a true salesperson. Oh, I'm going to call a number and figure it. It doesn't really work. It's hard. So I think the answer is I got lucky and I focused a lot on co-sell, but over time I've learned why that's actually beneficial and how to focus on it. And the piece I would say that I probably don't coach people enough on is this job is really about setting the right expectations, enablement, teaching everyone involved how this personally benefits them, right? Selfless versus selfish. But actually, turns out some of this stuff, you being selfish actually helps someone else too. But you have to understand, I call it the rules to the game. And then probably the last piece is it's a operationally intensive and program management kind of intensive role. And that part I'm still not great at, but I've just learned it's like the faster you can move with the fewer humans you need, the better off you'll be.
I would say an answer, because I guess my response is unlike you, I was actually focused on partnerships, right?
Yeah.
So I was very much, that was my channel economics was my go-to. But if I went back to myself now, I would say it's business economics. So ultimately, it's about, you need to engage with the CFO to understand and convince the CFO why this route to market is something that you need to consider for the business, if it's right for the business, but you need to have that discussion. Correct. And without that backing, everything else will fail. And without that strategic thought, and we've spoken about it before a little bit, that CRO is what the lifespan is 17 months. So without a company strategy and business economics actually settled on, and an understanding of how hyperscalers, and specifically AWS, fits into that, you're screwed. Now, when I was focused on partnerships, you don't want to fail, right? So you're like, no, there must be a way, there has to be a way. And we've been in businesses where we can change the game because of who we are, what we've done, the situational awareness, how we address things and make things happen. But if you don't have the support at the top and the understanding of how Marketplace can help that business, you're screwed. And that's something I don't think I would have liked to hear when I started.
So let's flip the question, is like, when do you decide, or why do you just, when's the tree dead?
This is my question last week. When is the tree dead? The tree is dead when people are looking at, and I'd say specifically C-level, are looking at outcomes rather than activities, and understanding that you need to do certain activities that will lead to the right outcomes. You don't just turn around and say, where's the apple tree with the apples? I signed this agreement and I expected apples or money, pipeline, revenue next week.
Yeah.
That's when, and unless you can get, and I'd say specifically the CFO, the CEO, and the CRO on board, you're going to struggle. You can maybe keep the tree alive a little bit. You can keep it going. You can keep it trickling, but without the incentives from the sales team, without the focus from the CEO, that's marketing, that's pre-sale sales. You're pretty much dormant anyway.
Also, remember, I switched it from return on investment to return on value, but sometimes the value isn't obvious. And I have so many examples, even a week ago, right? We partner with partners, we partner with GSIs. I already know there's someone at those GSIs that owns the cloud partnership, that owns the global AWS partnership, like me. Get me to that person. I met that person. We had coffee. We had a wonderful conversation. I speak their, I understand what's important to them, but I also speak the AWS language. I know what programs they have access to that I don't have access to. I know how I can say words and things that immediately prove by the way, no one at the table understands the language we're speaking, by the way. But
Yeah.
that was the point, right? And then what do I see as evidence? Oh, this is great. You guys get it. Now there's a different, I always say it's like the side door to a partnership that no one ever knew there was a door and no one ever went through that door. Does it solve everything? No. But if you can get built into this company's outcomes, I always say an SI or a partner like that, I joke and say they sell birthday cakes, right?
Yeah.
And they don't sell sugar, flour, eggs, vanilla extract. They don't sell that stuff. They sell birthday cakes.
Outcomes. Yeah.
And I want them to sell birthday cakes. And I want them to say, oh, the way we make this cake is we have a few different ingredients. Some of them are our solution advisors, consultant strategy. And then we plug in a few other technologies and we help you. Here's your birthday cake. That's what you paid for. A lot of, again, I always go back, like, how do I help them make money? How does our company get dragged along in this? Because they're making a lot more birthday. We're just selling ingredients over here.
Yeah.
They have bigger relationships, bigger contracts, but they can accelerate that. And honestly, flip it back to AWS. If it's a migration, they'll help fund that. If it's a modernization project, they'll help fund that. If it's an AI project, they'll help fund that. So to the customer, they still get a birthday cake, but now they're like, oh, I was going to pay $10 for that birthday cake. And now technically I'm paying $8 because AWS helps subsidize it, right? There's rebates back into it.
Yeah.
Very simple. This stuff happens, but this is the next levels. Once you get that right and you understand this stuff, why I said that is because, look, if this thing ever happens and this guy's selling us and dragging us into accounts and factory of birthday cakes, I get zero credit. I want zero credit. I give that full credit to my partner team, the GSI team. But I just helped as a catalyst to connect and link things and get another global role strategy advisor and speak there. That's value. But I don't put ones on the scorecard for my team. It just doesn't work that way. And the reason is because zero people at AWS, Google, Microsoft, they have zero goals to do that. Zero. They're not paid to do that. They have zero goals to do that. That's not their job. And their money drives motivate. They're not motivated. There's no money for them to do that.
Yeah. Coin operated, right? That's
It just money drives behavior. Like,
exactly.
Newsflash, show me a comp plan. I'll tell you what your reps are doing. Let me read your comp plan and I'll tell you if they're channel friendly, if they're cloud friendly. Are they comp neutral through the marketplace? I'll tell you how much marketplace you're doing.
Yeah.
Are they comp positive through channel or marketplace? I'll tell you that your words, channel first, channel whatever, I'll tell you actually what's happening on the field before I even know any of the data.
Exactly. And I think my challenge sometimes is I'm too positive with it. But like you, I think last time it was you were having more honest conversations. It's the first time I've heard you actually say, yeah, just don't plant the seed.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. Because if I can't change their mindset or they don't believe what you said, that the executive team has to believe in this, I honestly, the best advice is just don't do it or do it later. Don't do it now. You're not ready. Yeah. And sometimes people need to hear that.
I had an engagement literally in the last 48 hours, been speaking to them in the last 3 weeks, and everything's good. And we're talking about activities, measuring activities. This morning, I got the message of, yeah, the CRO wants to know roughly what pipeline we're going to generate within the first 90 days. I'm like,
zero.
But
I just tell them zero.
You gave me no numbers.
Yeah, I just tell them zero all the time. My answer to that question is zero. And if you ask a year from now, the answer is probably still zero. It's not like I'm forecasting rain and I see clouds and it's probably going to rain. Like, the ingredients that went into that call, I have no control over. And look, you could go ask the AI and chatbots this stuff. I do it. It's terrible. The answers are like no good. But I think it'll get better. But either way, these things exist to at least try to figure out, how do I get better? If this is my craft, how do I spend time learning about my craft to improve the probability that we'll get better, I'll get better, the company will get better, the team gets better, all that stuff.
Maybe that's our next session, right? So a high level.
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah, it's high level, right? You still have to do the work. The learning is in the struggle. No one's going to pump you answers. You have to do the work. But if you understand maybe what good looks like or what the best practices are, you got a chance to get better. All right, buddy. Good to see you.